Hello, and welcome to the premiere Hyborian Gates rules video. If you are searching for how to play this game, then this video is the one for you. This game is a fun game, and no one knows how to play it because the rules were written horribly. But that's okay, because we know how to play it, and we will now show you the way of Hyborian Gates. Something that is important to know about this game that you may have noticed is that there are different dimensions, and here they are. If you play the game, you will always have to set them up in this order. That's how it works. Later you will find more about transporting, which the order of the dimensions will come into play, and also Chaos is next to Hyboria, the two edges. It's like a circle. And you can set them up as a circle, or you can leave them attached like this. But anyway, each trooper or other card will be affiliated with a dimension. So the goal of the game is to control a certain number of the dimensions. You'll be sending troopers from your gates to the dimensions in the middle. It will be an all-out brawl for the dimensions in the middle. The game can be 2 players, or it can be 3, or it can be 8 players. 8 is the technical maximum, I think. In a 2-player game, you need to control 5 of the 6 dimensions. A 3-player game, 4 of the dimensions. 4-player game, 3. 5 to 8 players, you control 3 dimensions also. Yeah, and you will need to control those dimensions at the end of the phase, which is after everyone's turn. So you can take over the dimensions, but you don't win automatically. You gotta protect them for the rest of the phase.
So now I'm gonna go over the card types. There are a few different ones. So your main card types, which is gonna be the bulk of your deck, are gonna be the troopers, or in some cases, monsters. And so that's these 2 cards. There are 6 different kinds of troopers, and one of them are called monsters. So Chaos Monsters and Troopers basically have the same purpose. And if you see in the top right, they have a attack and defense stat, and that will come into play when they battle other troopers that your opponent controls. Great. Next up, there are gate cards. Now these are very important to have in the deck. You need to have 1 gate card per every 10 cards in the deck, and these will help you move your troopers and your monsters to dimensions within the game. And we'll get more into that later. And you'll do that by having your gate, and also these are pyramid cards, and you'll actually break these apart and actually make a pyramid, and you'll place them on top of your gates, and that'll give your gate power to move your troopers to dimensions. Alright, next up there are the 3 different types of attachable cards. You have companions for any different kind of trooper. You have Osiren Tech cards, which can be attached to anyone, but you get a bonus if it's attached to an Osiren trooper. And Asgard vehicles, only attachable to Asgard troopers. Now, the 3 of them do mostly the same thing. They will have they will give the trooper an attack boost and defense boost, whatever the card says, and it will also have an extra effect that you can use, you know, like you would attach anything, and it would get all of those attributes and just make it a stronger trooper. Next up, there are 2 different kinds of combat cards. These are cards that you can play when you're in a battle with an enemy trooper. You have Vortex Tactics, which are universal combat cards, And you also have Gaian Magic cards, which can only be used by Gaian troopers. Now, both of these kinds of cards, they'll have a certain effect that they'll say on the card, and when you're in battle, you will use however many you want in your hand, and then your opponent will do the same, and then you'll compare in the turn, and then you'll see who came out on top. And finally, the final different card in the game are called Power Surge cards. Now these cards are completely wild. These can be played at any point in the game to anyone. So whatever effect they have, it doesn't matter if you're in battle or not. You can be in battle. It might just be their turn and you don't want them to do something, and you can play that card to advance your agenda. Okay, so now here's how the game is set up. In the middle you have the 6 dimensions. If you're playing with 2 people, you can leave them in a line like this. Directly on either side of the board, this is a gate area where you could put down a gate corresponding to a certain dimension. And then directly below that is the ready area, where you would put troopers waiting to go through the gates into dimensions. And so to begin a game, prior to shuffling and drawing cards in your deck, you would pick a gate from your deck and you would place it down in the gate area. And then you would take a pyramid, which you've built from all those pyramid cards, and you would place it down. And so this way, it avoids drawing a hand that doesn't have any gates and then literally nothing could happen.
So after you've gone through your deck and chosen the gate you want to play, I will play mine. I'll put a pyramid on it. Then you shuffle your deck. Something like this. And then you draw 7 cards for your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you place your deck down. So you've got your hand, and then you've got your deck. And then you'll form a discard pile. Oh no, gate. You'll put a discard pile there or something. There's no official rule for that.
Okay, and now how this game works with turns is everyone who's playing the game, all of their turns are one collective phase. So at the beginning of the phase, everyone playing, in this case just 2 of us, will draw, which would put us up to 8 cards since we drew 7. And now at this point, anyone who has a gate in their hand could play another one down in addition to the one played at the beginning. So if I drew another gate, I could put it down, and then I would have 2 gates. And after the simultaneous part of drawing and putting gates down is done, whoever has the most gates on the field will go first. And if there is a tie in that, whoever brought more pyramids to the game will be the one who goes first.
So, after the simultaneous part of the phase, where everyone puts down a gate, I will also put down a gate. There we go. Obviously you need to have drawn a gate in your hand in order to put one down. I did. And then also, right when you put down a gate, you put down the pyramid you want. The color pyramid does matter. We will get into that later. It's for transport. So at that point, you will choose which single pyramid you want on your gate. So after that, then comes the turns. So let's say I go first. I will now, the first step of the turn out of 5, 6 steps, there's a lot of steps. The first one is the overload step. So you will make the decision, probably not at the beginning of the game, to overload your pyramid. Or your pyramid complex, which is the gate with the pyramid. So, there are numbers here around the side of the gate. When you overload the pyramid, complex, you choose a number of pyramids that you want to overload it with. So anything over 1 pyramid would be overloaded. So if I add 1 pyramid, then this will move to the 4. These numbers are how many phases until this gate is destroyed. So if you overload it, then you're basically putting a timer on your gate. You can add 1 pyramid, which will last the longest, but it's also not so much power. You could add another up to 4. You could add 4 for a total of 5. So that would be an end game, like all out go for a dimension. But the gate would only last 1 more turn. So that is the overload phase. The next step is the attach step. So, if the first phase of every game, no one will have any troopers in the ready area, because the step to put down troopers is actually after this. But if you have troopers in your ready area, so let's say I do. Let's say I've got this guy here, my good old Hyborian trooper. In the attach phase, I can decide to attach any number of cards. So I could attach, Siren Tech to it, just kind of like that, or whatever. This tech doesn't give any power specifically, but it gives a thing. So that's what you can do during attach. You can attach a vehicle or any number of companions or tech. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the third step of the phase? This is probably the most complicated and the one that people get confused by the most. I don't claim to know everything about it, but this is what we have gathered from several sources, including the rulebook, which was not very reliable. So, transport step. All cards have these symbols. You can see that this one has 2 of this symbol. This is an Osiren Tech, but it has 2 of this. Most cards will have 1 like this. This is the transport power number. So, if you want to transport just this, so let's say I didn't attach a tech, just this, you would need 1 transport power. That's straightforward. If you attach this card, or any card, you will have to add the number of transport power to it to make a total. So if I attach this trooper would now need 3 transport power to go to a dimension. So, in order to do that, you need the gate of the right dimension. So this deck that I made is Osiren, and here I have 2 Osiren gates. So we'll just focus on 1 for now. Here I have decided to add this orange-yellow pyramid. This is an Osiren pyramid. There are also colors for every dimension. If you add the same color pyramid to the gate, then that gate will have 2 transport power to the dimension. In this case, it is Osiris. It will also have 1 transport power to the neighboring dimensions. The neighboring ones are the ones right next to it. So in this case, it is Chaos and Atlantis. That is if you have the matching pyramid complex, same color. Or you can decide to put a different color. So let's say I wanted to put on a green pyramid. This gate, since it is Osiren, it will now have 1 transport power to Osiris and 1 to Gaia because of the green. That's the extent of that. That would be a strategy that you could employ. If you overload it, like let's say you've got let's say I decided to put 2 more Gaian colored pyramids, and I put them at here, I think. Then, now I would have 2 additional transport power to Gaia. If I wanted that. Or it could be, you know, this many to that many. If you have a themed deck, like I do, for Osiris, you may choose to overload with multiple of the same type of pyramid, Osiren. So if I put, for each additional pyramid that I put that is the same color as the gate, it is +2 to that dimension. So if I overloaded with just 1, then now this has a power of 4 transport to Osiris. And then just +1 to the neighbors. So that would be 2 to neighbors, 4 to Osiris. This would be 6 to Osiris. This would be 8 to Osiris. And so on. I could also add different colors if I wanted to for different strategies. Yeah, so that's how you would transport. You gotta have your strategy down for transport. Which a good strategy might be to have the same color. Okay, so now that we're ready to transport, we can pretend like I put down this Osiren Trooper into my ready area, and we can pretend like it's not the first turn. But yeah, for example, let's say I had this down, Osiren Trooper, Swords Women. I could use this, since this only needs 1 power because of the symbol, and I actually have 2 power to Osiris. I could choose during the transport phase, you only get to transport 1 trooper. That would include all its attachments, like a tech. So I could transport this cluster to Osiris. Like that. And that's me taking it over. If there was someone else there, then there would be combat right now. But, yeah. I could also, if I hadn't attached a tech to this card, I could transport it also here or here without overloading. If I really wanted to, I could have overloaded with 2 Gaian pyramids there. Then I would have 2 transport power to Gaia, just like that. So then I could transport them here, like that, to Gaia. Just depends on where you want to go. So this is not in the rules, but we've decided that you put the card on the dimension when it has taken it over. Your opponent, when it's attacking, will just like put it like kind of there, I guess, or like it's attacking. Yeah.
So now we're gonna touch on combat. Let's say I could go to Osiris. So I take my trooper, and since there's already a trooper there, now we're in combat. It's possible to have more than 1 trooper in a dimension. So if that was the case, I would choose 1 to attack. But since there's only 1, I'm attacking this one. So the way it would go is the person attacking would choose any Vortex Tactics cards from their hand, and they would place them face down for any Vortex Tactics cards that they would want to use. And then the defending person would do the same thing. They would put however many Vortex Tactics cards, if any, they want to use. And it would be also at this point, if someone was a Gaian Trooper, if they wanted to use Gaian Magic, they could do that. But since we're not, we won't do that. So then, we would flip all of our Vortex Tactics over and use them however they're meant to be used. Like this one would double any 1 natural number of my player's choice. So I could say, oh, my trooper's defense is 4, but I'm gonna double it, so now it's 8. And that will come into play because now that we've used Vortex Tactics, we will compare our strengths. And so it appears I do pretty well against the trooper I'm attacking. I have 6 attack, they have 1. I have 4 defense, they have 3. So if I attack and my attack is bigger than their defense, they'll be destroyed. But if their attack is bigger than my defense, I will also be destroyed. So to attack a trooper and take over that dimension, your defense also needs to be stronger than their attack.
So, once combat has concluded, the next step is the ready step, which is when you would put down any troopers or monsters in your hand that you want to put in the ready area. So, in the first turn of the game, you would basically skip to this step without doing any transport. And hopefully you have troopers in your hand. Sometimes you don't, and that really sucks. But you can put any number of troopers down. I just happen to have 2 of the same. Here's another one. So, this could be my ready phase. Ready step. But also, you can attach during the ready step also. So, you can place troopers, and then you can attach anything you want to. You don't really have to attach during this step, unless you're trying to be really strategic, because you can just attach during, like, the second step of your next turn anyway. But you may want to attach, because after the ready step is called the activation step, but basically it's like the end of your turn. So you would make sure you discard your hand down to 7 cards. I have 2 cards in my hand. If I had 8, then I'd have to discard 1, because 7 is the max you can have at the end of your turn. Also, during this step, you would make sure any overloaded gates that you have. So if I had 1 here, I would move the counter down, like that. And if this was on 1, and then I moved it off, then the gate would be destroyed, and you would lose it. So now, this is the most important part, because this is explicitly said in the rules. You have to do this. In some card games, you say, I end my turn, or something like that. In Hyborian Gates, you say, to the player on your left. So if it's a 2-player game, then obviously you just switch off. But if you've got a circle of people, you're going around to the left, you say, your gates are active. That means that your turn is over, and that is the next person's turn in the phase. So, your gates are active. It says that in the rules. You have to say those exact words. If you don't say those words, then your turn isn't over. You have to say it. You have to say it. So, at the end of every phase, which would mean that everyone took their turn, everyone went through activation, they all discarded down to 7, and they all did what they wanted. Then the very end of the phase, which is called the end phase, is simultaneous, once again, from everyone, just like the drawing. You check for the win. So you look down at your dimension board, and you see, oh, I do or don't have 5 dimensions, or whatever, and so I do or don't win. And then you would go to the next phase. So from there, the turns would probably switch around, or whoever goes first might change depending on how many gates they have. Yeah. So there's the phases. There's the steps. Each trooper or other card will be affiliated with a dimension. The colors correspond to the symbols on the cards. And each card from each dimension has a special ability that you will have to remember, and you will take into account if you're making a deck of some kind. Here is an Atlantean trooper. It says it there, but there's also the symbol there. The Atlantean troopers, if they control a dimension for at least one turn and are not involved in battle in the same turn, they may lend support to a neighboring dimension once per turn, giving +1 strength for themselves and then +1 for each Atlantean attachment. That's something to keep in mind when you're playing with or against Atlanteans. Osiren, they can, if a tech is attached to an Osiren trooper, then the tech will automatically give them +1. So +1 strength. +1 strength, not defense. Strength, the top number, per tech that you attach. And also, once you can, if you have a tech and a companion, both Osiren, the tech is all Osiren, then that trooper will gain +3 strength. So, making an Osiren deck, you can consider that. Tech can be attached to any trooper, but it gives Osiren troopers bonuses. Chaos Monster, which is the trooper of the Chaos dimension, are the only troopers that can use Dimension Walk, which is an ability during the transport phase that will come into play. But basically, they can move between dimensions freely. They have to get rid of all their attachments if they do that. But they can. No other trooper can do that. Unless it says in the description, which some of them do. Asgard. They are the only ones that can use vehicles. One vehicle can be attached per trooper. But vehicles are pretty good and can only be used by Osiren troopers. So that's their strength. Gaian Magic, or Gaian. Yeah, the troopers can use the Gaian Magic cards. The only ones that can. And Gaian Magic can actually be played from the same or a neighboring dimension. If the neighboring dimension, the trooper in the neighboring dimension is not involved in battle in that turn, that trooper can play a Gaian Magic card and help out its buddy in the other dimension. You can strategize with your Gaian cards that way. And finally is the Hyborian trooper. They have no special ability you need to remember. They're just very strong most of the time. This guy in particular is 13 and 8. 13 strength, 8 defense. That's probably higher than any other of the dimensional troopers that you'll find.
Hot. Okay, so as we stated before, the way to win is by controlling a certain number of dimensions, and then the game would end at the end of that phase. But there is one more way to win. If any person in the game decks out, runs out of cards, whoever controls the most dimensions at that time will be the winner. So that's something fairly unique to this game, where it can actually be good for you to try to deck out if you have more dimensions than someone else at that time. So keep that in mind, that you can win by decking out.
You can play this game with 2 people, or you can play it with more than 2 people. And if you're going to do that, then we suggest putting your dimensions like this. It is in the same order, but it is in a circle. So you can still have your 2 areas, which is just 2 rows. So you'll have your gate area kind of right here, and then your ready area back here. And you can have, 3 people, 4 people. If you have 5 to 8 people, you will put down a second universe. So you will add a second set of these cards, like in a bigger circle. And that will come into play with the amount of dimensions you control yet. Yeah. You can also play in a circle with 2 people. Maybe you prefer that. I don't know.